There is a page in Fantastic Four number 48, published in March of 1966, that stops people cold. Reed Richards stands on a rooftop in New York City. He is looking up. The sky above him is wrong. Something is there that should not be there. A figure so enormous its feet alone are larger than skyscrapers, wrapped in armor that suggests no civilization on Earth ever designed it, carrying a device the size of a building whose purpose no one in the panel understands. It has no expression you can read. It has no interest in Reed Richards or anyone around him. It is here because the planet is here, and the planet is something it needs. Its name is Galactus. Ahead of it, descending on a board that reflects the light of the distant stars, is a silver figure, smooth, humanoid, silent. He found this place. He reported back. He made this arrival possible, and he does not yet understand what he has done. That image, the world devourer arriving, the herald descending, humanity looking up from its rooftops and not comprehending what it sees, is the moment Marvel Comics decided to build a cosmology instead of just a universe. It is the moment the publisher committed to the idea that whatever space these characters inhabit is not just large, but infinite. Not just inhabited, but presided over. Not just dangerous, but governed, at the deepest level, by forces so old and so vast that every hero and every villain and every god these comics have ever produced barely registers against them. This video is about those forces, the beings that sit above the Avengers, above the X-Men, above every character who has ever struggled through a storyline and called it cosmic. It is about the entities that define what existence means in the Marvel Universe. Not just who is most powerful in a fight, though that is part of it, but what each being represents, what philosophical purpose they serve, why the writers who created them kept reaching for something bigger, and what they found when they got there. Welcome to Quiet Marvel. Get comfortable. This one goes all the way to the top. The story of Galactus begins before the current Marvel Universe exists. There is a version of this that sounds like science fiction, and a version that sounds like theology. And the comics have always been comfortable holding both at once. Before the universe that Spider-Man and Captain America inhabit, there was another universe. A different cosmos, older than the current one, cycling toward its inevitable end. The stars were dying, the planets were cold. The civilizations that once filled that universe had already been gone for eons. And among the last life left in that dying reality was a space explorer from a planet called Taa, a man named Galan. Galan was not a god, he was a scientist, a navigator, a mortal being watching the end of everything. The radiation consuming the last of his universe was killing him, killing everyone, and as Galan and a handful of other survivors made a final journey toward the dying star at the center of their collapsing cosmos, choosing to die in its light rather than wait for the end, something happened. The sentience of the universe, the consciousness of that dying sixth cosmos, reached out. It found Galan, it merged with him, and it carried him forward through the death of one universe and into the birth of the next, transforming him in the process into something that had never existed before. The entity that emerged from the cosmic egg of the newborn seventh cosmos, the universe that would eventually contain Earth, and the Avengers, and every story Marvel has told, was no longer a man. It was not quite a god. It was something else, a being that required the energy of living worlds to sustain itself, that carried within its form the consciousness of an entire dead universe, that existed at a scale that made even planets seem like dust. This is Galactus, not the armor, not the helmet. The being inside all of that, ancient beyond ancient, the last survivor of a universe that ended before the current one had begun, walking through a cosmos of life he was destined to consume. Stan Lee and Jack Kirby introduced this character in Fantastic Four number 48 in March of 1966. The full arc runs through issues 48, 49, and 50, a three-part story that fans and historians have called the Galactus Trilogy. Lee recalled the impulse simply. After creating so many powerful villains, they felt the only way to escalate was to invent someone with almost godlike power. But what they actually created was something more specific than power. They created a moral force of nature. Galactus does not consume worlds out of malice. He does not destroy civilizations because he hates them. He does not even notice them in any meaningful sense. He experiences the same relationship to the beings on the planets he devours that a person experiences to the bacteria on a piece of fruit. They are there, they have lives, they matter to themselves, and none of that changes what happens to them. This is the idea that the Galactus Trilogy is actually built around. Not good versus evil, not heroes stopping a villain, something stranger and harder, the collision between the human moral scale and a force that operates completely outside it. Reed Richards cannot argue with Galactus. He cannot appeal to his conscience. He cannot make Galactus feel guilt about what he is doing, because guilt requires a shared framework of values, and Galactus and the Fantastic Four do not inhabit the same moral framework. What Reed does instead, and this is the specific stroke of genius in the story, is find a weapon. The ultimate nullifier. A device so destructive that Galactus himself is said to fear it. A device that can erase anything from existence, including its user. Human Torch is sent to Galactus's ship, finds it there, and brings it back. Reed points it at Galactus, and for the first time in the story, the World Eater stops. He does not stop because he is afraid of dying. He stops because the nullifier can end his existence at a cosmological level, removing him entirely from the fabric of what is. And a being who has survived the death of one universe has a particular relationship to that kind of ending. He leaves, he takes the nullifier with him, and he curses the planet and all who inhabit it, not with rage, but with something closer to the way a person curses a thorn that got stuck in their finger. You are too much trouble, and he is gone. The question of who comes next, who serves as Galactus's herald after the Silver Surfer's defection, is one that the comics have returned to repeatedly, and the answers reveal something consistent about how Galactus thinks about the beings he works with. He does not grieve the Silver Surfer. He does not search for a replacement who shares the Surfer's qualities. He searches for the next available candidate and imbues them with the power cosmic. And the transformation does what the transformation does, and the new herald goes where the new herald goes. Airwalker was a member of a different species, given the power cosmic and sent to find worlds. He was eventually killed in battle, and Galactus built a robotic version of him, a literal machine wearing the shape of the being he had lost, fulfilling the same function. Firelord, another species, another grant of cosmic power, another herald. Terrax the Tamer, a brutal and ambitious being whom Galactus specifically chose for his ruthlessness, a recognition that a herald without sentiment might be more reliable than one who could develop a conscience. Nova, who was a human woman named Frankie Ray, a friend of the Human Torch, who volunteered to become Galactus's herald in exchange for the guarantee that Earth would be spared. That last detail is the one that stops you. A human being, aware of what the role entails, volunteering. Giving up her humanity to become something the power cosmic makes of her, to lead Galactus away from the world she grew up on. It is the Silver Surfer's bargain replicated by someone who had the example of the Silver Surfer's tragedy directly in front of her, and made the bargain anyway. Each herald tells Galactus something about the range of conscious response to cosmic scale. Some become detached, some become cruel, some retain enough of what they were to feel the weight of what they are doing. Galactus observes none of this with judgment, because judgment of his heralds on moral grounds would require a moral framework that Galactus does not apply to himself or to his servants. They find worlds. He consumes worlds. The relationship is entirely functional. What happens to the herald's psychology inside that function is not his concern. But the story is not done, because the Silver Surfer, Galactus's herald, the being who found Earth and brought the Devourer here, turned against his master during the battle. He was moved by the sight of humanity fighting for its survival, and when Galactus ordered him to do nothing, the Surfer defied him. As punishment, Galactus erected a barrier around Earth, trapping his former herald on the planet he tried to save. That punishment is not cruel in a human sense. It is simply what Galactus does when something breaks from its function. The Silver Surfer was a tool that stopped working, so Galactus discarded him, but not without sealing him away, because a wandering herald who knows the location of feeding grounds could cause complications. Think about what that actually means. The being who found Earth, brought the greatest threat the planet has ever faced to its doorstep, and then helped save it, is now trapped here, on the world he almost destroyed, indefinitely. That is not a happy ending. That is a consequence that keeps running. Galactus himself, meanwhile, continues. He always continues. He is too old and too necessary to the function of the universe to simply end. Because here is what the comics eventually reveal. Galactus is not just a predator. He is a mechanism. The energy he consumes and releases is part of the cosmic balance. He devours, and in devouring, he sustains something larger than any individual world. Remove him from the equation, and something worse fills the space. Something called Abraxas, a force of pure destruction without the complex, regulated relationship to life that Galactus maintains. That is not a small thing. Galactus the World Eater, the destroyer of civilizations, is also, in a precise cosmological sense, necessary. The universe needs him. The destruction he causes is terrible, and it is also part of what keeps existence functioning. This is the idea that separates Galactus from every other powerful villain Marvel had created before him. He is not wrong. He is not evil. He is something worse and stranger, a moral force of nature that the human categories of good and evil do not apply to. He is what happens when you try to write a being whose power is so vast it has passed beyond the realm where ethical judgment means anything. And he is, in this cosmic hierarchy, not even close to the top. That much needs to be established before we move further. Galactus is enormous. Galactus is ancient. Galactus survived the death of one universe and has operated in this one since before history began. He occupies a place on the cosmic scale that reduces even the mightiest heroes to insects. And he is, by the standards of the beings we will encounter as this video continues, a mid-tier power. There is an entire level above him that he answers to, whether he acknowledges it or not. But before we move up that hierarchy, there is a figure we need to spend time with. A figure who began as part of Galactus's story, who was created on a whim by Jack Kirby, and then turned by Stan Lee's writing into something that has haunted Marvel's cosmic mythology ever since. The Silver Surfer is not the most powerful being in this video. He is, in many ways, the least powerful being in this video, but he is the one whose story says the most about what power costs. Before we move on, if you are enjoying this analysis, please consider subscribing. It helps the channel tremendously. Norrin Radd was an astronomer on the planet Zen-La. The details of that life matter. He was not a fighter, not a warrior, not someone trained for the kind of decision that was about to be asked of him. He was someone who spent his life looking at the stars, which is its own kind of preparation for the moment when the stars look back. Galactus came to Zen-La the way he comes everywhere. He did not announce himself. He did not negotiate. He began the process of consumption, and the only question was how long it would take. Norrin Radd did what no one else thought to do. He went to Galactus. He offered himself. Not as a sacrifice exactly, as a bargain. He would serve as Galactus's herald, finding new worlds for the Devourer to consume, guiding him away from populated worlds whenever possible. In return, Zen-La would be spared. Galactus accepted. The transformation was total. Galactus imbued Norrin Radd with a portion of his own power cosmic, the fundamental energy that Galactus uses to sustain himself and manipulate the universe around him. He gave him a form of silver, frictionless, capable of surviving in hard vacuum and the radiation of dying stars. He gave him a board to ride, shaped to the contours of space, a vehicle that can travel faster than light. And he suppressed the parts of Norrin Radd that might make him hesitate. That last part is the part that never gets enough attention. Galactus did not simply enhance Norrin Radd. He removed his attachments. His memories of Zen-La were dimmed. His feelings for his partner Shalabal were muted, not erased entirely, but pushed down below the level where they would interfere with the work. Galactus needed a herald who would seek out the most life-rich planets in the galaxy and bring him to them. A herald who remembered loving someone, who remembered what it was like to be part of a civilization, would be a bad herald. He might hesitate. He might steer around inhabited worlds. He might develop a conscience. He was not supposed to have a conscience. The thing about the Silver Surfer, the reason the character became something far larger than Jack Kirby's unplanned addition to Fantastic Four #48, is that the conscience came back anyway. Not all at once. Gradually, in pieces, through exposure to humanity. Specifically through exposure to Alicia Masters, the Thing's girlfriend, a sculptor who was blind and who encountered the Silver Surfer during the chaos of Galactus's arrival and spoke to him. Not as an enemy, not in fear, as one conscious being to another. And something in Norrin Radd that Galactus had tried to suppress woke up. The Surfer turned against his master. He helped the Fantastic Four. He helped humanity survive something that should not have been survivable. And as noted, Galactus's response was to trap him here. The barrier around Earth was not merely a punishment, it was a lesson. You wanted to protect this world? Fine. You will be part of it. You will watch it. You will be unable to leave it. And every day you spend on this world will be a reminder of what your choices cost. Stan Lee's run writing the Silver Surfer solo series, which launched in 1968 with art by John Buscema, is among the most philosophically earnest work Marvel produced in that era. The Surfer spends his time on Earth encountering human cruelty, human love, human war, human beauty, and being constantly astonished that beings so capable of goodness are also so capable of violence. He is an alien studying the species he saved, and the study does not always go well. He is also constantly being used. Governments try to weaponize him. Villains try to steal his power. Every faction with an agenda tries to recruit him or destroy him or manipulate him. He is too powerful to ignore and too principled to be a reliable ally in the way that power normally works. The specific kind of loneliness that comes from being too powerful to belong anywhere, too alien for humanity, too human for the cosmos, is what the Silver Surfer has always been about. He gave up his freedom to save the people he loved. He gained power beyond imagining, and he has no one to share it with and nowhere to go, and the planet he saved is slowly teaching him that the species he sacrificed everything for is also capable of extraordinary cruelty. That is not a comforting story. That is, in the vocabulary of the cosmic beings this video is about, the small version of a lesson that gets repeated at every scale going up. Power does not equal understanding, and it certainly does not equal belonging. The power cosmic itself deserves a moment. What Galactus gave Norrin Radd is not simply the ability to fly fast or survive in space. The power cosmic is a fundamental manipulation of the energy that underlies existence. The Surfer can alter matter at the molecular level, create force fields, project energy blasts capable of destroying planets, sense the life signatures of entire star systems, and move at speeds approaching the cosmic speed limit. He is, by almost every objective measure, one of the most powerful beings in any room he enters. And he has spent most of his existence trapped on a single planet, unable to do the one thing he was made for. The Silver Surfer's story is the first indication in Marvel's cosmic mythology of a theme that will keep appearing as we move higher on the hierarchy. Power and freedom are not the same thing. The most powerful beings in existence are often, in crucial ways, the most constrained. What they can do is vast. What they are permitted to do, or what they are able to do without consequence, is something else entirely. The Celestials arrive on a different scale. If Galactus is a force of nature, and the Silver Surfer is a fallen angel, the Celestials are something closer to what the word God actually means before human mythology domesticates it. They are not interested in human worship. They are not interested in human anything. They are astronomically tall. The smallest of them stands 2,000 feet high, encased in armor so elaborate and so alien that no one has ever determined where the armor ends and the being inside begins, or if there is a being inside at all. They arrive in groups. They do not speak in any language any civilization in the universe has been able to translate. They do what they came to do, and they leave. Jack Kirby created the Celestials in 1976, upon his return to Marvel after several years at DC Comics. The first issue of his Eternals series, published in July of that year, opens with an archaeologist discovering evidence that something visited Earth 1,000,000 years ago, something that does not fit any human theory of prehistory. The comic is explicitly drawing on Erich von Daniken's theories about ancient astronauts, the idea that the leaps in early human civilization might have had an extraterrestrial origin. Kirby took that premise and pushed it past speculation into mythology. The Celestials visited Earth a million years ago. They found early hominids. They performed genetic experiments, vast, deep, species-level alterations to the genetic material of early human life. From these experiments emerged three distinct evolutionary branches: Homo sapiens, the ordinary human beings who would eventually build civilization; the deviants, genetically unstable beings whose DNA shifts constantly and who in early history ruled the surface of the Earth; and the Eternals, superpowered, immortal beings created to serve as a defense mechanism. This is a creation myth. Marvel's actual creation myth for humanity, embedded in a Kirby comic from the mid-70s, is that human beings as they exist were deliberately designed, that the genetic flexibility of the human species, the capacity to develop mutations, to evolve, to produce the X-Men and the Inhumans and every other variant on Homo sapiens the Marvel Universe contains, is not an accident. It was engineered. The Celestials built it in. Why? That is the question the Eternals series and its many successors spend decades circling without ever quite answering. The Celestials return to Earth periodically. The first host, the second host, the third host, the fourth host, each visit separated by thousands of years, each time performing inspections whose criteria remain opaque. They are evaluating something. They are measuring progress against some standard that has never been communicated to the species being measured. The fourth host is particularly significant in the comics. The Celestials arrive in their dozens, standing at points around the world like a jury that has already made its decision, and the Eternals and their leader Zuras attempt to make a case for humanity. The sky gods of every human culture, Odin, Zeus, all of them, attempt to stop the Celestials and are dismissed with a gesture. The Celestials are not impressed by what humanity considers divine. They render their verdict and depart. This is the most important thing the Celestials establish in Marvel's cosmic mythology. There is a form of power that does not care about the forms of power below it. Odin is a god. He is worshipped by millions. He has carried Mjolnir, led Asgard, defeated every foe his mythology has ever presented him with. The Celestials look at him the way a person looks at a dog that is barking at the sky, aware that something is there, not moved by it. The Celestials also raise and refuse to answer the deepest question any creation myth raises. If we were made, what were we made for? The experiments they conducted on early humanity were not random. They had a purpose. That purpose has been the subject of Marvel Comics for 50 years, and the answers that have emerged are unsatisfying in exactly the way that a real answer to that question would be. We do not know why we are here. We know we were designed. We know the designers will come back to check on us. What they are checking for, and what happens if we fail, is information we do not have. The Celestials are not villains. They are not heroes. They are the universe's architects, and they do not concern themselves with whether the things they build have opinions about the blueprints. What sets them apart from every other powerful being we have discussed so far is their plurality. Galactus is one being, however vast. The Silver Surfer is one being, however sad. The Celestials are a race, a civilization, a collective presence that exists at a scale that makes individual identity feel beside the point. When they arrive together. Their power is not concentrated in one entity that might conceivably be reasoned with. It is distributed across a group whose consensus process, if they have one, is entirely invisible. The armor they wear carries weapons. The devices built into their massive forms can reshape planetary surfaces, manipulate genetic structures at a species level, and generate energy outputs that register on cosmic scales. But they rarely use these things aggressively. They do not need to. The civilizations that encounter them are so far below their operational capacity that aggression would be the equivalent of a person using a nuclear weapon to deal with a mosquito. They do not fight, they evaluate, and when a judgment is rendered, there is no appeals process. One particular Celestial deserves mention by name, the dreaming celestial, also called Tiamut, sealed away beneath the Diablo Mountains in California by other celestials for reasons that were never fully explained, awakened in various storylines to catastrophic effect. A celestial who in some manner dissented from the consensus of the others and was imprisoned for it. The idea that even within the ranks of these vast, inscrutable beings there is something like a dissident, a celestial who chose differently. That single detail opens the mythology in a direction that Kirby's original series only gestured at. Because if a celestial can choose, then the celestials are not simply automatons. They are not programming running on a scale too large to see. There is something like will in there, something like judgment, which raises a question that none of the comics have fully answered. If celestials have will, have any of them ever decided the experiments they are running are wrong? Before we move on, if you are enjoying this analysis, please consider subscribing. It helps the channel tremendously. There is a being in Marvel Comics who has been watching everything we have discussed, has seen the Galactus Trilogy, has watched the Silver Surfer trapped on Earth, has observed the Celestials arrive and depart across the millennia, has witnessed every crisis and every triumph and every moment of horror that Earth's history contains. His name is Uatu. He is the Watcher assigned to Earth's solar system, and by every principle of his civilization, he should not be talking to us about any of it. Uatu first appeared in Fantastic Four number 13 in April of 1963, created by Stan Lee and Jack Kirby. He appeared then as simply a massive being living on the moon, encountered by the Fantastic Four when they stumbled across his sanctuary. He told them he observed but did not interfere. He asked them to leave. They left. But the story of why he does not interfere, the oath, the reason for the oath, is what makes Uatu more than just a plot device. Long before human civilization developed, the Watchers were one of the oldest and most advanced races in the Marvel Universe. They were powerful enough to shape the development of younger civilizations and wise enough, they believed, to know how to do it well. And so they did exactly that. They shared their knowledge. Advanced nuclear technology, given to the people of a planet called Prasilicus. The people of Prasilicus used that technology to destroy themselves. The entire civilization, gone. An act of generosity, an act of genuine altruism from beings who thought they could help, and the result was extinction. The Watchers gathered and made a collective decision. Never again. No interference, no involvement, no gifts of knowledge or weapons or technology. They would watch. They would record. They would remember everything. And they would do nothing. Uatu took this oath. He meant it. He has also violated it more times than any other Watcher, and he has paid for it, including a formal trial by his own people. The specific nature of his violations tells you something important about what the oath costs. In Fantastic Four number 48, the same issue where Galactus arrives, Uatu tried to warn Earth. He removed himself from his observatory, broke the most fundamental principle of his civilization, sought out the Fantastic Four, and attempted to give them enough time to prepare. He could not stop Galactus. He knew he could not stop Galactus. But he could give humanity a chance to stop him, and he chose to do that instead of simply observing humanity's extinction. He was not punished for this at the time. He was put on trial later, for accumulated violations over decades, found guilty. Released on his own recognizance, the cosmic equivalent of a suspended sentence, a judgment that acknowledged the violations were real while recognizing that Uatu was not going to stop. The specific kind of loneliness that comes from knowing everything and being forbidden to do anything with that knowledge is the loneliness that Uatu lives inside. He has watched civilizations rise and fall. He has watched choices being made that he knew would end badly. He has seen the exact moment where one different decision would have changed everything, and he has said nothing. He has sat in his observatory on the moon and recorded what happened next. Until he could not. Until a child dying. Until a planet burning. Until a moment where the observance of the oath would cost more than the violation. The end of Uatu's story, told in the 2014 event series Original Sin, written by Jason Aaron with art by Mike Deodato, is brutal and strange. Uatu is found murdered, shot in the head, his eyes removed. Someone killed a watcher and stole his eyes, which contain every secret he has ever observed. The mystery of who killed him drives the story forward. The answer, when it comes, is Nick Fury. Old Nick Fury, the original, the super soldier serum version from the World War II era, not his son, had been operating in secret for decades as the Earth's secret defense, killing threats before they reached the planet, making choices the heroes could not make. He was called the Man on the Wall, and when he was old and dying, he went to the moon, he killed Uatu, and he took the eyes, not out of cruelty, because he needed to know what Uatu knew, because whatever was coming required that knowledge. The consequence is fitting in the way that only truly earned consequences are. Fury becomes the unseen, blind, chained to the moon, condemned to observe everything and say nothing, his voice silenced, his sight stolen. He takes Uatu's place. The man who killed the Watcher becomes the Watcher. The oath that Uatu violated, Fury is now unable to violate. He watches and he cannot speak. There is something almost cosmically just about that, in a universe that usually does not bother with that kind of symmetry. And it is, in the context of this video, the clearest illustration of what it means to be a mid-tier cosmic being in the Marvel Universe. You see everything, and your power to act on what you see is almost nothing. The next level up is harder to describe, not because the beings are more obscure, but because they are more abstract, literally abstract, in the technical sense. They do not have bodies in the way that Galactus has a body. They do not have armor or a face you can look at. They are the universe itself, or aspects of it, made self-aware. Eternity is the first and oldest of these. Created by Stan Lee and Steve Ditko, first mentioned in Strange Tales number 134 in July of 1965, and first seen, truly seen, as a figure in a panel in Strange Tales number 138 in November of that same year. The context is Doctor Strange seeking out eternity because he has no other option, no other power in the cosmos sufficient to the threat he is facing. What Doctor Strange encounters when he finds eternity is one of the most remarkable images in the Silver Age of comics. A vast human silhouette, not humanoid, but literally human in its proportions, like a man's outline stretched to a cosmic scale, filled entirely with stars and galaxies and the deep dark of space. Not wearing stars, not standing in front of stars, made of stars. The stars are inside the figure. The figure contains them, because the figure is the universe, given a shape that Doctor Strange's human mind can comprehend. Eternity is not a being who watches the universe, or governs the universe, or travels through the universe. Eternity is the universe, the sum total of all time and all space, the aggregate of every particle and every force and every moment that has ever existed or will ever exist in this reality, made conscious and given a form that can be addressed. That is a different kind of entity from anything we have discussed. Galactus is a being of incomprehensible power who moves through the universe. Eternity is what the universe is when the universe is aware of itself. Sit with that distinction for a moment. When Doctor Strange first sought out eternity in Strange Tales number 138, encountering the entity as a last resort, driven to the edges of known reality by a threat that no other power could address, what Strange actually did was address the universe directly. Not a guardian of the universe, not a representative of the universe itself. Eternity's response to Strange, in that first appearance, is not the response of a being who has been interrupted at its work. It is the response of something vast and patient that is not entirely sure, at first, that this small visiting consciousness registers as something requiring attention. This is the detail that Steve Ditko's visual rendering makes almost viscerally clear. The human silhouette filled with stars is not a metaphor. It is a statement of fact. This figure contains the stars. When you are speaking to eternity, you are speaking to every star in existence simultaneously. The body of the conversation is the sky. Every galaxy rendered in that silhouette is a part of what is listening to you. What does it mean for the universe to listen? This is not a rhetorical question. It is the practical problem that every character who deals with eternity must navigate. The universe has a perspective, but that perspective is not human proportioned. It does not prioritize individual events the way individual beings prioritize them. An event that catastrophically reshapes a civilization registers to eternity the way the death of a single cell registers to a human body, as part of the system's ongoing process, noted but not grieved. An event that threatens the universe itself, that poses a risk to the sum of what eternity is, registers differently. But distinguishing between those two categories, from the perspective of the small beings whose civilizations hang in the balance, is almost impossible. There have been moments in the comics where writers tried to give eternity's perspective a more immediate, human-readable quality. The event known as Infinity War in 1992, the sequel to the Infinity Gauntlet, written by Jim Starlin, involved a threat to eternity itself, the Magus and his assembled power causing a fracturing of the universal consciousness. In that context, eternity's distress was rendered as something comprehensible, a being in pain, the universe hurting. The imagery was effective in precisely the way that all effective cosmic imagery is effective, not by making the cosmic small, but by finding the small thing inside the cosmic that the human reader can hold. A being in pain is comprehensible. The universe in pain, made legible through that same vocabulary of pain, carries the cosmic weight on its back. What eternity cannot be is surprised. It cannot be deceived about the state of the universe, because it is the state of the universe. It cannot be kept ignorant of events because events are happening inside it, and to it, simultaneously, at every moment. The specific limitations of eternity's consciousness, the things it perceives and does not perceive, the scales at which it operates, are never fully defined in the comics, and that undefined quality is correct. The comics do not know what it is like to be the universe any more than we do. The visual shorthand, the human silhouette, the star-filled form, these are bridges built to let the reader cross a conceptual gap that cannot actually be crossed. The gap between human consciousness and cosmic consciousness is, in the end, the same gap that the entire mythology keeps returning to. Not because it can be closed, because the attempting to close it, the effort of imagining what it would be like to be eternity, or death, or the one above all, is itself a kind of expansion. You cannot actually see from where eternity sees, but the effort of trying changes something in how large you can imagine the universe being. That is what the best cosmic marvel has always been doing. Not describing a bigger universe, making the reader feel the size of the one that already exists. Infinity is eternity's twin, not in the narrative sense, but in the cosmic sense. Where eternity represents the entirety of time, infinity represents the entirety of space. Together, they are the two fundamental dimensions of existence: the container and the content, the framework inside which everything happens. They are not married, not in conflict, not separated. They are two aspects of a single thing that the human mind cannot hold as a single thing. So Marvel Comics rendered them as two figures. There is something worth sitting with here. The Marvel Universe's two most fundamental abstractions were both given human shapes. Not because they are human, because the comics are a human medium, read by humans, and the writers were trying to do something genuinely difficult: make the concept of the universe itself legible to a reader sitting in a chair. Steve Ditko's visual solution to this problem, fill the silhouette with space, is among the most quietly elegant pieces of design in superhero comics. It tells you exactly what eternity is without a single word of explanation. The power level here is almost impossible to quantify. When we talk about what eternity can do, we are essentially asking what the universe can do. The answer is, anything that does not violate the principles governing the universe itself. He cannot be destroyed, because you cannot destroy the universe and have the universe continue. He cannot be deceived, because deceiving eternity would require deceiving space-time. He can be imprisoned. This happens, specifically during the events of the Infinity Gauntlet storyline, where Thanos, at the absolute apex of his power, manages to trap eternity within his own mind. But that condition does not last, because the thing trapping the universe inside itself is inherently unstable. Death is a different kind of abstract entity. Where eternity is the universe and infinity is space, death is something more specific, the principle of ending, the fact of cessation given consciousness. Created by Mike Friedrich and Jim Starlin, first appearing in Captain Marvel number 26 in June of 1973, death in the Marvel Universe is not a figure with a scythe collecting souls. Death is the underlying reality that all life in the universe navigates around, the inevitability that gives life its shape, the absence that defines what presence means. She appears when she appears to mortals as a figure in a robe, sometimes skeletal, sometimes female, human in face if not in nature. To Thanos, she appears as a woman, and this is not accidental. It is the specific form she takes for the specific being who is most obsessed with her. She is not manipulating him by appearing attractive. She is simply appearing in the form his mind constructs for what he desires, because she is, among other things, a mirror. Her twin, Oblivion, represents pure non-existence, not death as the end of individual lives, but the concept of nothing, the void that preceded the universe, and waits for it on the other side. Oblivion is paired with death, the way infinity is paired with eternity, two aspects of a concept too large for one figure. Death is the ending of what exists. Oblivion is the state of never having existed. Both are necessary to the cosmic order. The relationship between death and the being who worships her is something we need to spend significant time with, because the story of how one mortal, or something close to a mortal, attempted to give death everything she could ever want, and what happened when he succeeded, is the central epic of Marvel's cosmic mythology. Before we move on, if you are enjoying this analysis, please consider subscribing. It helps the channel tremendously. Jim Starlin created Thanos during his time in college, and he has said explicitly that the character came out of psychology classes. The concept of Thanatos, the death drive in Freudian theory, the instinct toward self-destruction and dissolution that Freud theorized ran alongside the life instinct in every human psyche, became a purple-skinned warlord with a chin that looks like something geological. He first appeared in Iron Man number 55, with a cover date of February 1973. The cover date is important for collectors. The actual publication date would have been several months earlier, but the February 1973 date is what comics history records as the introduction of one of the most narratively significant characters ever created by Marvel. That comic also introduced Drax the Destroyer, another Jim Starlin creation, which means a single issue generated two characters who would eventually have featured roles in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. But the coin that matters in that issue is Thanos. He is not, in Iron Man number 55, the figure most people know from later stories. He is a warlord, a schemer, someone operating at the edge of the known Marvel Universe, gathering power, watching larger forces, and calculating where he can wedge himself in. The cosmic obsession, the relationship with death, the philosophical ambitions, all of that develops over the course of several years of Jim Starlin's writing, primarily through Captain Marvel, Warlock, and eventually his own limited series. What Starlin was building, across those years, was a character defined by a specific contradiction. Thanos is brilliant. Genuinely, demonstrably brilliant. A level of intellect that operates on a strategic timescale most beings cannot even perceive. He plans in decades. He runs simulations that anticipate responses his enemies have not yet conceived. He is, in the purely cognitive sense, one of the greatest minds the Marvel Universe has produced. And he is also completely out of his mind. Not in the sense of erratic or irrational, in the sense of a person who has constructed an elaborate and internally coherent worldview that rests on a premise so wrong that everything built on it is also wrong. Thanos believes that by giving death what she wants, by killing enough beings, by the most extreme and spectacular act of mass killing conceivable, he will earn her love. That death, an abstract cosmic entity who personifies the principle of ending, will look at the scale of the offering and be moved. This will never work. Death cannot be courted the way Thanos is trying to court her. The premise of the relationship is wrong at the most fundamental level. But Thanos has built his entire existence around this premise, and so every plan, every alliance, every acquisition of power has a single purpose: to do something for death that she cannot ignore. The Infinity Gauntlet, published in 1991 as a 6-issue limited series written by Jim Starlin with art by George Perez and Ron Lim, is the culmination of everything Starlin had been building since 1973. Thanos assembles the 6 Infinity Gems, 6 stones of incomprehensible power, each one granting mastery over a different aspect of existence. The Soul Gem, the Time Gem, the Space Gem, the Mind Gem, the Reality Gem, the Power Gem. Together, set in a golden gauntlet, they make their wearer omnipotent. Not nearly omnipotent, not functionally omnipotent within certain parameters. Omnipotent. The absolute master of all that exists. Thanos puts on the gauntlet. He snaps his fingers. Half of all life in the universe ceases to exist instantly. Not killed in a way that leaves bodies or damage or evidence. Simply gone. Turned to dust or vapor, or simply removed from reality. The Avengers, the X-Men, the entire superhero infrastructure of the Marvel Universe is suddenly cut in half, and the surviving half has no idea what happened or why. He does this for death, as a gift, as an offering so massive, so unambiguous, that she cannot possibly fail to see it as devotion. She does not respond. This is the cruelest moment in the story, and Starlin holds it carefully. The universe has been remade. Half of all conscious life has ended. The cosmic entities are in chaos. Eternity has been imprisoned within Thanos' mind. The living tribunal has been challenged. And death, the being all of this was done for, the presence Thanos has worshipped since before he was who he is now, looks at what he has done and remains silent. She is not angry. She is not grateful. She is not moved. She is, in some sense, offended. There are readings of the story where death treats Thanos' gift as a presumption, an imposition of intimacy from someone who has confused proximity to death with understanding it. But more accurately, she simply cannot feel what Thanos wants her to feel. Asking death to feel gratitude for killing is like asking a river to feel gratitude for rain. The rain does not change the river's relationship to water. Thanos, at the highest point of his power, with the universe at his feet, and more cosmic might than any being in Marvel history had ever accumulated at a single moment, cannot get the attention of the entity he loves. Let that sit for a second. He then makes a series of decisions that can only be understood as the decisions of a being who does not believe, at the deepest level, that he deserves what he has taken. He creates a throne. He invites death to sit beside him. She refuses. He creates a construct of a woman, Taraxia, as a companion. He allows himself to be distracted. He grows overconfident, and he leaves openings, again and again, that more careful versions of himself would never have left. Adam Warlock, the cosmic being who serves as the Surfer's former ally, and the closest thing this story has to a hero on the cosmic level, eventually organizes a resistance of surviving heroes that attacks Thanos directly. They lose, badly. One by one, they are removed from the board in ways that make the power differential unmistakable. But in the chaos of the battle, Thanos' granddaughter Nebula, who he has humiliated and disfigured, steals the gauntlet. And now the second most powerful being in the universe is someone even more unstable than Thanos. The cosmic entities rally. Adam Warlock gets the gauntlet. The living tribunal rules that even Warlock is not worthy to wield it alone, because his soul carries darkness. The Infinity Gems are eventually separated, distributed among a group called the Infinity Watch, and Thanos goes off to quietly farm on an asteroid. He does this genuinely. He walks away from the greatest power in the universe, goes to an asteroid, and grows vegetables. There is a reading of this that is anticlimactic. There is a truer reading: Thanos, stripped of his certainty, stripped of his plan, does not know what to do with himself. He spent his life reaching for something he could never have. Now that he has failed to have it in the most complete possible way, he has nothing left to reach for. That is not a happy ending. That is a portrait of the specific kind of devastation that comes from pursuing the wrong goal with perfect commitment for your entire life. The snap that Thanos performed in the Infinity Gauntlet was recreated in the Marvel Cinematic Universe across Avengers, Infinity War and Avengers Endgame, released in 2018 and 2019. The MCU version simplified the motivation, no death, no courtship, instead a population control theory about resource scarcity, but kept the central image, one being, alone, at the peak of power, doing something no being should be able to do. Half of everything, gone. What the MCU translation demonstrates, actually, is how much the original cosmic mythology matters to that image's emotional resonance. The snap works as a movie moment because of the 50 years of mythology Starlin built leading up to it. Remove the relationship with death, remove the long arc of failure and self-deception, remove the cosmic scale of what Thanos is reaching for, and you have a plot device. Keep all of that, and you have a tragedy about a character who is, in the most precise sense, in love with an idea that cannot love him back. Now we encounter something different, something that does not fit cleanly into the hierarchy we have been building, because it did not begin inside the hierarchy at all. In 1984, writer Jim Shooter, who was Marvel's editor-in-chief at the time, created a storyline called Secret Wars. The premise was simple, by Marvel's standards. An all-powerful being kidnaps Marvel's heroes and villains, deposits them on a constructed planet called Battleworld, and has them fight each other. The being orchestrating this is never seen directly. He is only described, referred to, gestured at. He is the Beyonder, something from outside the multiverse that found its way in and decided to run an experiment. Then, in 1985, Shooter brought the Beyonder back in Secret Wars 2, a 9-issue limited series with crossovers into almost every Marvel title being published at the time. This time, the Beyonder comes to Earth, as a human. He adopts a human body, human appearance, and walks through New York City trying to understand what it means to want something. This is, on its face, an absurd premise. An omnipotent being, a figure capable of rewriting reality with a thought, wandering around Manhattan trying to figure out desire. But Shooter's actual conception of the character is stranger and more interesting than the premise suggests. The Beyonder did not come from outside the multiverse as a tourist. He came because he experienced something impossible for a being of his nature. He perceived the Marvel multiverse from outside and felt, for the first time in his existence, that there was something he did not have. Something was there, something the multiverse contained that he did not. He came to find out what it was. What follows is a story about the most fundamental problem with omnipotence. When you can have anything instantly, nothing has value. The Beyonder creates wealth. The wealth means nothing to him. He creates comfort, pleasure, fame, power within the human social structure. All of it feels like nothing because he did not earn it, did not wait for it, did not exist in a state of not having it long enough for having it to matter. The gap between wanting something and getting it, for the Beyonder, is zero, and that gap is where value lives. He eventually considers the most extreme solution: erase all existence. Everything that is, removed. The problem of desire solved by eliminating the desiring beings. This brings him into conflict with the assembled cosmic entities of the Marvel Universe and with the heroes, and the confrontation produces no clean answer, which is, in retrospect, the right ending for a story about a problem that has no clean answer. The Beyonder was later retconned in various ways. Jonathan Hickman's writing, which we will come to shortly, revealed that the original Beyonder was a child member of a species, the Beyonders, rather than the unique omnipotent entity Shooter had described. Some readers consider this a diminishment. Others see it as the comics doing what they always do, absorbing a character into a larger structure, giving them a context that makes the mythology more complex. What the original Beyonder story established, regardless of later retcons, is a specific question that Marvel's cosmic mythology had not previously asked. What is the experience of omnipotence from the inside? Galactus is vast and ancient, but he has a purpose. The abstract entities are vast and have a function. Thanos has a goal. The Beyonder has none of these things, and the story is about what it feels like to be powerful enough to do anything and not know what any of it is for. That question does not have a satisfying answer in the comics. It might not have a satisfying answer at all, but the asking of it is what puts Secret Wars 2 in the company of The Stranger, more philosophically serious work in Marvel's cosmic library, even when the execution falls short of the ambition. The true revelation of what exists above the structure we have been building comes from a run of comics written by Jonathan Hickman, beginning with his Avengers and New Avengers series in 2012 and culminating in Secret Wars in 2015. What Hickman's run revealed is not a single new cosmic entity, but a new level of threat, something operating at a scale that makes the living Tribunal, the cosmic judge who governs the multiverse, look manageable. The Beyonders. They were first mentioned, in passing, in the team-up comic Marvel 2-in-1 number 63, published in May of 1980 by Mark Gruenwald and Jerry Bingham. In that appearance, they were simply buyers of rare cosmic objects, beings from outside the known universe who collected curiosities. That mention sat in Marvel continuity for 3 decades, a loose thread that no one had pulled. Hickman pulled it. What emerged across the pages of New Avengers and the Avengers and culminating in Secret Wars, written by Hickman and drawn by Esad Ribic, beginning in 2015, is one of the most disturbing concepts Marvel's cosmic mythology has ever produced. The Beyonders are not a single being and not an abstract entity and not a race of strange but comprehensible aliens. They are the architects of the multiverse's destruction, not accidental destroyers, not collateral damage. Architects, designers. They built the mechanism that would end all of reality, and they built it in advance, with intention, and set it running on a timer. The mechanism is Molecule Man. In every universe in the Marvel multiverse, there is a Molecule Man. Owen Reese. A mild-mannered, psychologically damaged man who possesses the ability to manipulate matter and energy at the atomic level, one of the most powerful beings in his universe, but one who has spent most of his existence either villainous in a low-key way or simply avoiding the responsibility his power implies. In the standard Marvel universe, the Earth 616 universe, he has been a recurring character since the Silver Age. What Hickman revealed is that every Molecule Man in every universe is essentially a bomb. The Beyonders seeded the multiverse with Molecule Men, one per reality, as individual detonation devices. When they decide a universe is ready to end, they trigger that universe's Molecule Man. The explosion destroys everything in that reality. Move to the next universe. Trigger. Destroy. Universe after universe. Systematically, the Beyonders ending the multiverse from the inside out, using weapons they planted millions of years ago. There is a word for what this is, and it is genocide, but at a scale that makes that word feel inadequate. Not the killing of one civilization, not even the killing of all civilizations in one universe. The killing of every civilization in every universe that has ever existed. The multiverse contains infinite realities. The Beyonders have been destroying them, systematically, with what appears to be complete indifference to the scale of what they are ending. Why? The question is raised in Hickman's run and not satisfyingly answered, which is consistent with how the Beyonders function. They may be running an experiment. They may be enforcing a cycle that the multiverse was always meant to follow. They may simply be doing what they do, as Galactus does what he does, with no more need for justification than a forest fire has. The response to the Beyonders' plan comes from an unlikely coalition: Doctor Doom, Doctor Strange, and the Earth 616 Molecule Man. They travel across the collapsing multiverse, gathering Molecule Men from the dying universes before those universes are fully destroyed. They assemble these Molecule Men into a weapon, a concentrated mass of the same power the Beyonders had intended to use against the multiverse, and they direct it at the Beyonders themselves. The detonation kills the Beyonders. Doctor Doom, channeling the absorbed power of the Beyonders through the Molecule Man, becomes something unprecedented, a human being with the power of the Beyonders at his disposal. He uses it to construct Battleworld from the last remaining fragments of the destroyed multiverse, a patchwork planet assembled from ruins, governed by doom as a god. This is the premise of Secret Wars, 2015. What matters for the purposes of this video is the signal that the Beyonders' existence sends about the structure of Marvel's cosmos. The living tribunal, the cosmic judge who maintains balance across the multiverse, who we will meet shortly, is found dead at the beginning of Hickman's run. Not dying, dead. A being whose sole purpose is the governance of infinite realities. A being who answers to only one entity in existence, killed. His body floating in space, his three faces still and silent. The Beyonders killed him. That is the single data point that tells you everything about where the Beyonders sit in the hierarchy. Not above Galactus, not above eternity, above the being who governs the multiverse itself, the one whose jurisdiction is not one universe, but all universes. The Beyonders are something outside the entire system, not a higher level of the hierarchy, but a force that the hierarchy was not designed to contain. This is, in Marvel's cosmic mythology, the most unsettling concept the publisher has produced, something that exists beyond the structure meant to ensure existence continues. Something that the living tribunal, whose entire function is the protection of what is, cannot stop and did not see coming. The Living Tribunal was created by Stan Lee, Marie Severin, and Herb Trimpe, first appearing in Strange Tales number 157 in June of 1967. The context, again, is Doctor Strange, the most reliable gateway character in Marvel's cosmic mythology, the human who keeps being pushed to the absolute limit of what a human mind can navigate, and who keeps coming back with some new knowledge of the universe's structure. In that original appearance, the Living Tribunal gives Doctor Strange a deadline. Prove that Earth is worth saving, or it will be erased. This is not a villainous act. The Living Tribunal has determined that the forces of evil on Earth have grown too powerful, and that the planet represents a destabilizing influence on the balance of the multiverse. Its proposed solution is elimination. Doctor Strange spends the next several issues making the case that the planet should continue. This is the Living Tribunal's function. Judge. Not executioner, not protector, not warrior. Judge. He evaluates situations across the multiverse, determines what the balance requires, and renders verdicts. Those verdicts are final. There is no higher court, with one exception. He manifests as a vast golden humanoid with three faces, each face representing one of the three aspects of his judgment. The front face, the one that speaks, represents equity, balanced consideration of all sides. On his right, a face completely hooded in shadow, representing necessity, the recognition that some decisions must be made regardless of their cost. On his left, a face half-hooded, representing just revenge, the acknowledgement that consequence is a legitimate principle of cosmic governance. Three faces, no back of the head. He sees in three directions simultaneously, and there is nothing behind him because there is nothing the Living Tribunal does not face. His power is practical in the way that Judge's power is always practical. It is the power of finality. When the Living Tribunal rules, the ruling stands because every force in the multiverse acknowledges the Tribunal's authority. He prevented the Infinity Gems from being used collectively during certain periods, literally overriding the will of whoever held them, because the stability of the multiverse required it. He found Adam Warlock unworthy to hold the collected Infinity Gems after the events of the Infinity Gauntlet, and that ruling was not appealed because there was no one to appeal it to, except the One Above All. But the One Above All does not typically intervene in individual cases. The Living Tribunal is, for all practical cosmic purposes, the highest authority in Marvel's multiverse, which is why the discovery of his body, floating in space, dead, is the most significant single image in Hickman's entire run. Not a battle, not a defeat, a body, already cold. The judgment rendered before anyone in the Marvel Universe was even aware the Beyonders were operating. The Tribunal saw them coming, perhaps, and did not survive the encounter. Or he did not see them coming at all, because they were operating from outside the system he was designed to govern. The specific cruelty of his death, the fact that it happened off-screen, without drama, without a final stand, tells you something about the Beyonders. They did not fight the living tribunal. They did not need to fight him. They removed him from the equation the way you remove an obstacle. He was there. He was relevant. And then he was not. After the events of Secret Wars, a new living tribunal was established. The position restored, the function resumed. The machinery of cosmic justice does not stop because one judge has died. There is always a replacement. The role is more important than the entity filling it. This is the living tribunal's most important characteristic. Ultimately, he is a function. The function of judgment, the function of balance, given form and consciousness and authority. When he is gone, the function remains necessary, and another entity assumes it. He is not irreplaceable, the role is irreplaceable. The distinction is cosmic in its implications. Even the beings who govern the multiverse are, in some sense, filling a position that exists independently of them. Above the living tribunal, above eternity and infinity, above the beyonders, above every concept and force and entity we have explored in this video, there is one more level, one more presence. And it is the level where the hierarchy stops, not because there is nothing beyond it, but because beyond it there is only the thing that everything came from. The one above all. In Fantastic Four number 511, published in 2004, and written by Mark Waid, with art by Mike Wieringo, the Fantastic Four travel to heaven. Literally. Ben Grimm has died, and Reed Richards is going to find him. What they encounter there, and who they encounter, is rendered with a specificity that the comics creators clearly intended as more than just another Marvel cosmic figure. The one above all appears as a bearded man in an apron, middle-aged, ordinary-looking, in the way that only something profoundly extraordinary could manage to look ordinary. And the character as drawn by Wieringo bears an unmistakable resemblance to Jack Kirby, the creator, the man who drew Galactus and the Celestials and Uatu, and so much of the mythology we have been exploring in this video, the one whose imagination built most of the structure we have been climbing. This was not accidental. The writers and editors involved in Fantastic Four number 511 understood exactly what they were doing. By depicting the supreme being of the Marvel Universe as a figure resembling Jack Kirby, they were making the most direct statement the comics medium can make about what omnipotence actually is. It is creativity. The power that underlies all existence is the power that created all existence. And in the Marvel Universe, the being most responsible for creating the cosmic mythology, more than Stan Lee, more than Steve Ditko, more than Jim Starlin, was Jack Kirby. The one above all is omnipotent, omniscient, and omnipresent in the specific senses those terms have in theology. Not merely very powerful, not merely very knowledgeable, but the source from which all power and knowledge derive. Everything that exists, every celestial, every abstract entity, every cosmic force, every universe in the multiverse itself, came from the one above all. The living tribunal serves as the highest active authority in the multiverse, specifically because the one above all does not typically involve itself directly in the management of what it created. This is, if you think about it for a moment, the most important thing the one above all says about the nature of omnipotence. It does not manage, it creates. The created things, the cosmic entities, the governing structures, the hierarchies of power, manage themselves. The one above all is not running the multiverse the way a CEO runs a company. It is the principle that the multiverse exists at all. The foundation, not the architect. The source, not the engineer. He has appeared in other comics since that first 2004 showing. In Thanos number 13 in 2017, written by Jeff Lemire, the one above all appears to Thanos himself in a conversation that is, by any measure, the most direct dialogue in Marvel Comics between the Supreme Being and one of its most significant creations. The conversation concerns the nature of death, the purpose of creation, and whether the one above all has been watching Thanos specifically. The implication, and it is only an implication, is that it has. That the entire arc of Thanos' existence, every failure, every moment of near omnipotence, every time he reached for death, and found only silence, has been watched from the highest possible vantage point. What does the one above all want? The answer the comics have consistently returned to is love. Not the love that Thanos has for death, not obsession, not worship, not the desire to be acknowledged by something you cannot reach. Something simpler and stranger, the love that a creator has for what it has made. The one above all does not describe itself as sitting above the hierarchy in judgment. It describes itself as the creative force underneath everything, holding everything up, invested in the continued existence of what it made, because it made it. This is, in the context of a universe full of beings who consume worlds and judge universes and systematically destroy realities, a quietly radical statement. The most powerful being in existence is not the most powerful because of what it can destroy. It is the most powerful because of what it has made. The source of all things is not a warrior or a judge or a predator. It is something more like an artist. There is a version of this that sounds sentimental, and the comics are careful not to tip into sentiment. The one above all does not fix things. It does not intervene to save the planets Galactus devours, or the civilizations the Celestials experiment on, or the half of all life that Thanos erased. The creative force underlying existence does not prevent the suffering that existence contains. It simply sustains existence itself, the framework inside which suffering and joy and love and destruction all occur. Whether that is comfort or not depends entirely on what you were hoping for. What it represents, in the architecture of Marvel's cosmic mythology as a complete system, is the answer to the question that the entire hierarchy poses. If there is a structure to existence, if there are forces that govern it, and abstract entities that embody it, and a judge who maintains its balance, then what is underneath all of that? What is the foundation? The answer is not a warrior. It is not a tyrant. It is not a mechanism or a law or a force of nature, in the way that Galactus is a force of nature. It is a creative principle, the thing that made the decision that there would be something rather than nothing. The hierarchy has its apex, but the beings who navigate between the levels of that hierarchy, the ones who serve as the cosmos's instruments, its immune system, its living bridges between the abstract and the physical, deserve their own accounting. And there is no figure in Marvel's cosmic mythology who embodies that role more completely, or more tragically, than the being who began as an experiment and ended as a messiah. His name, in the simplest possible terms, is Adam Warlock, and his story is the deepest examination Marvel has ever conducted of what it actually costs to be chosen by the cosmos to serve it. He did not begin with that name. He did not begin with any name at all. In Fantastic Four number 66 and 67, published in 1967 and written by Stan Lee, with art by Jack Kirby, a group of scientists working for a shadowy organization called the Enclave created something in a laboratory, a perfect human being, genetically engineered, intended to serve as a weapon. The being emerged from a cocoon in a burst of golden light, looked at the people who made him, immediately rebelled against them, fled, and entered another cocoon to undergo a second transformation. He was called in those early appearances simply him, not a name, a designation, a reference to the fact that this thing was, in some technical sense, masculine, but not yet defined enough to have an identity. The Enclave created a being more powerful than anything they had ever designed and immediately lost control of it, because the being they created was not interested in serving anyone. Roy Thomas and Gil Kane continued the character's story in Thor issues 163 through 166 in 1969. The story is strange and not entirely coherent, and Him spends much of it in another cocoon. The theme is already present. This is a being who keeps retreating into transformation, who keeps emerging slightly different from what he was before, who cannot quite settle into an identity. Jim Starlin changed all of that, beginning with Marvel Premiere #1 in 1972, where the character was renamed Adam Warlock and sent to a world called Counter-Earth as a messianic figure, and then with his own writing in Strange Tales number 178 through 181 in 1975, Starlin took this restless, undefined being and turned him into one of the most fully realized characters in Marvel's cosmic mythology. The story Starlin built operates on multiple timelines simultaneously. Adam Warlock carries the Soul Gem, a green jewel that is one of the 6 Infinity Gems, stones of incomprehensible power, each governing a different aspect of existence. But the Soul Gem has a property the others do not. It is hungry. It consumes souls. The gem has an inner dimension called Soul World, a realm of amber light where the souls the gem has taken live in peaceful stasis. Warlock carries this thing, this predator he has bonded with, knowing what it costs and choosing to carry it anyway, because the alternative is that the gem consumes others without his guidance. Starlin's greatest invention in the Adam Warlock stories is the Magus. The Magus is Adam Warlock's own future self, a version of him that will exist centuries hence, having descended into madness and villainy, having built a religious empire called the Universal Church of Truth that extends across galaxies, having become precisely the kind of cosmic tyrant that Warlock himself finds most repugnant. Warlock encounters this future self not as a warning, but as an inevitability. The Magus is what he is going to become. The question is whether he can find a way to avoid it. The answer, worked out across the Warlock series that Starlin wrote through 1975 and 1976, involves Thanos. This is the first sustained collaboration between Thanos and Adam Warlock, and it is remarkable. The two beings who will spend decades as cosmic adversaries meet here as something closer to allies. They need each other. Warlock needs Thanos' power and resources to have any chance of disrupting the timeline that leads to the Magus. Thanos needs Warlock's cooperation because his own plans require a specific kind of cosmic instability that the Magus' empire would foreclose. They work together. They prevent the Magus. And in doing so, they establish a dynamic that will define cosmic Marvel for the next 2 decades. The relationship between the being who seeks death and the being who keeps coming back from it. Because Adam Warlock dies. In Marvel 2-in-1 Annual No. 2, published in 1977, with art by Starlin, Warlock faces Thanos' first major scheme for universal destruction. He dies in the battle. His soul is taken into his own Soul Gem. He goes to Soul World, and that is where he stays for over a decade. He comes back for the Infinity Gauntlet in 1991. Starlin brings him out of Soul World, resurrects him in a fully physical form, and gives him the specific function of organizing the resistance against Thanos. He is the one who sees the full picture, who understands what Thanos has done and what it will cost to undo it, while the street-level heroes can only see the immediate catastrophe. He is, in the architectural sense of the narrative, the being who holds the map. And then the Infinity Gauntlet is placed in his hands. He holds omnipotence. The 6 gems, assembled, the total power of the universe channeled through one being, and the living Tribunal steps in and rules that Adam Warlock is not worthy to wield that power. Not because he is evil, not because he is weak, because the Soul Gem, which Warlock has carried for so long, and which has shaped his psyche, has left a residue of darkness in him. The Tribunal can perceive this darkness. It rules that no single being should hold the total power of the Infinity Gems, and specifically that Adam Warlock, with his particular psychic history, cannot be trusted with it. Think about what that actually means. He survived death. He came back from Soul World. He organized the resistance to the most powerful being in the universe. He held the Infinity Gauntlet and used it responsibly. And the cosmic judge looked at him and said, "There is something in you that has been damaged by what you have carried, and we cannot let you keep this." The power is taken from him. The gems are distributed to a group called the Infinity Watch, Warlock himself, Thanos, Gamora, Pip the Troll, and others, each holding one stone, preventing any single entity from assembling the full gauntlet again. What Starlin built with Adam Warlock, across years of work, is a character defined by the specific tragedy of cosmic usefulness. He is always needed. The universe always requires something from him. He is resurrected, he is conscripted, he is given tools of incomprehensible power, and then told he cannot be trusted with them. He accepts all of this not because he is naive, but because he understands the alternative. The alternative is that someone worse fills the role he was made to fill. He is the cosmos's chosen instrument, and the cosmos does not ask its instruments whether they are comfortable with the work. There is a version of Adam Warlock that the comics have never shown directly, the version that simply refuses, that emerges from Soul World, perceives what is being asked of him, and says no. That being does not exist in the comics, but you can feel the shape of him around the edges of every story Warlock appears in. He is there in every moment where Warlock agrees to something he did not choose. He is the version who might have had a different kind of existence if the cosmos had not kept reaching for him. The comics never let that version live. Warlock keeps accepting, the universe keeps demanding, and somewhere between those two facts is the specific understanding of purpose that the cosmic mythology keeps returning to at every level. To be built for something is not the same as choosing it, but when the thing you were built for is the only thing standing between existence and its own undoing, the distinction between purpose and choice starts to feel less important than it once did. That version of Adam Warlock, the version who carries death in a gem and still chooses to keep going, is the right figure to stand before what comes next. Because there is a cosmic force in the Marvel Universe that shares his relationship with the cycle of death and rebirth, but that operates not at the level of one individual, but at the scale of all life that has ever existed. It is not a character in the conventional sense. It is something older, something that the X-Men story has been circling since 1976, and that has never quite fit inside any single genre or framework Marvel has tried to apply to it. The Phoenix Force. The entity that Jean Grey encountered in Uncanny X-Men number 101, published in October of 1976, written by Chris Claremont with art by Dave Cockrum, is one of the strangest things Marvel ever created, not because of its power level, which is vast, but because of what it represents. The Phoenix Force is the embodiment of the universal life force, not life in the biological sense, life in the cosmological sense, the sum of all living consciousness that has ever existed in the universe, distilled into a singular awareness that moves through history like a tide. It chose Jean Grey. That is the essential fact, and it is one that the comics have worked to explain for 50 years without quite resolving. Why her? The conventional answer is that she was the most powerful telepath on Earth and the most psychically open to a connection of this magnitude. The deeper answer is that the Phoenix does not explain its choices in terms that human minds can process. It perceives patterns across billions of years of life. It sees where a given consciousness fits into the larger design. It chose Jean Grey because she fit. That is all it has ever offered as explanation. The Dark Phoenix Saga, written by Chris Claremont with art by John Byrne across Uncanny X-Men issues 129 through 137 in 1980, is the defining story of what happens when that power is held by someone who was not prepared for it. It is not a story about corruption. It is a story about the relationship between power and context, about what happens when an awareness that operates on a cosmic scale is experienced through a human nervous system that was not designed to contain it. Jean Grey as Dark Phoenix is not evil in a conventional sense. She is not scheming, not calculating, not motivated by ideology. She is a person who has merged with the sum of all life in the universe and is no longer entirely sure where she ends and it begins. In that state, she does things that cannot be undone. She flies into space and consumes the energy of a star. The collapse of that star destroys a planet in the system. 5 billion people, the Dabari, are dead. Not as a tactic, not as an act of war, as an incidental consequence of a being who no longer has a firm enough grip on the human scale to register 5 billion people as anything other than a small number. That detail is what elevates the Dark Phoenix saga above a straightforward superhero story. The Shi'ar Empire, which lost those 5 billion citizens, puts Jean Grey on trial for genocide, not for trying to destroy them, for not caring enough about them to avoid it, for treating 5 billion lives as a rounding error. The story ends on the moon. Jean Grey, in a moment of restored clarity, understands what the Phoenix Force is doing to her and what it will continue to do. She makes the choice that only she can make. She kills herself. Not to escape punishment, not to avoid the Shi'ar Tribunal, not as a sacrifice in the conventional heroic sense. She kills herself because she is the only person in the universe capable of stopping the Phoenix Force from continuing to act through her, and she uses that capacity before the Phoenix can take it away. That is a different kind of heroism than any superhero story had portrayed before 1980. Not the hero who fights until they cannot fight anymore. The hero who identifies the specific thing that only they can do and does it even when that thing is their own ending. She came back. She almost always comes back. The retcon, established in Fantastic Four number 286 in 1986, written by John Byrne, is that the real Jean Grey never merged with the Phoenix Force at all. The Phoenix copied her consciousness and took her place. The actual Jean Grey was in a healing cocoon at the bottom of Jamaica Bay, resting, while a cosmic entity wore her face and destroyed a solar system. The actual Jean Grey woke up and had to live with the knowledge of what had been done in her name. This retcon does not diminish the Dark Phoenix saga. If anything, it complicates it in the most interesting possible direction. The Phoenix Force chose someone, copied that person so perfectly that no one could tell the difference, acted through the copy for months, and then let the copy die while the original slept. The Phoenix did not need Jean Grey's permission. It did not need her consent or her participation or even her consciousness. It just needed her form. This is the most unsettling thing about the Phoenix Force. It treats the beings it inhabits as vessels. It is not cruel about this. It does not take pleasure in the control. It simply operates at a scale where individual human autonomy is a smaller consideration than the function it is performing. The beings who have served as Phoenix hosts, Jean Grey, Rachel Summers, Hope Summers, the 5 X-Men of the Phoenix 5 in Avengers vs. X-Men in 2012, all carry the specific burden of having been chosen entirely and still treated as means rather than ends. The Phoenix Force is the fire that clears the ground for what comes next. It does not concern itself with what was growing before the fire. The cycle is the point. The individuals inside the cycle are kindling, or seeds, depending on where in the process you are standing when you look. Before we move on, if you are enjoying this analysis, please consider subscribing. It helps the channel tremendously. There are levels of the cosmic hierarchy that exist slightly to the side of the great vertical line from Galactus to the one above all, entities whose power is enormous and whose functions are crucial, but whose stories are less about escalating conflict and more about the specific geometry of what it means to balance opposing forces. Lord Chaos and Master Order are the clearest example of this. Created by Jim Starlin and first appearing together in Marvel 2-in-1 Annual No. 2 in 1977, Lord Chaos and Master Order are the embodiments of the universe's two fundamental organizing principles, not good and evil. Chaos and order, the tendency of systems to move toward randomness, and the tendency of other systems to resist that movement. The twin drives that give the universe its structure without either one ever winning completely. They are depicted in ways that are deliberately simplified to the point of abstraction. Two vast figures floating in space, rarely described in physical detail because their physicality is beside the point. They do not have stories in the narrative sense. They have positions. What they are matters. What they do is almost always channeled through something else. That something else is the in-betweener. The in-betweener is their creation and their instrument, a being designed to exist at the exact midpoint between all opposing forces, chaos and order, life and death, light and darkness, reality and illusion. He is, in the most literal possible sense, the embodiment of balance, not the balance that the living tribunal maintains as a matter of cosmic governance, but the balance that the universe itself requires simply to keep existing. Too much order and the universe calcifies, stops changing, stops generating the novelty that allows life to develop. Too much chaos and nothing persists long enough to matter. The in-betweener walks between them. He first appeared in Doctor Strange Volume 2, number 29 in 1978, written by Roger Stern with art by Tom Sutton, and his characterization is consistently that of a being who is difficult to place. He is not a villain, precisely. The things he does that look villainous are usually expressions of his function rather than his malice. He has captured the Silver Surfer, battled Doctor Strange, and moved against Galactus, not out of antagonism, but because these beings represented imbalances that his function required him to address. What is most interesting about the In-Betweener, in the context of everything this video has explored, is the question he poses about the nature of balance at the highest levels of the cosmic hierarchy. Lord Chaos and Master Order, despite their vast power and their fundamental cosmic functions, are themselves subject to the living Tribunal. They are two of the innumerable forces that the Tribunal balances, but they also exist in a kind of productive tension with each other that the Tribunal manages but does not resolve, because it cannot be resolved. Chaos and order are not problems to be solved. They are the conditions under which everything else exists. The In-Betweener cannot side with chaos against order, because siding with one would make him something other than what he is. He cannot stand apart from both, because the balance has to live somewhere, and it lives in him. He exists inside a permanent tension that will never, by its nature, be released. That is not a burden he carries, it is what he is. Marvel's cosmic mythology is full of beings defined by this kind of irreducibility. Galactus cannot stop being what he is. Death cannot stop waiting. The In-Betweener cannot stop balancing. These are not choices they make, moment to moment. These are the structures of their existence, as fundamental to them as the fact of being conscious is fundamental to a human being. Lord Chaos, Master Order, and the In-Betweener are not the top of the cosmic hierarchy, but they are among the most structurally important entities in it, because they represent the principle that keeps the hierarchy from collapsing into a single dominating force. The universe requires both of its organizing drives to operate simultaneously. Maintaining the tension between them is itself a cosmic function, and that function requires something that lives inside the tension permanently, that does not flinch from it, that holds it without resolution. The In-Betweener holds the line. Quietly, in the spaces between the stories that everyone remembers, he does the work that nobody thanks and nobody names, because naming it would be to suggest it could be finished. It cannot be finished. It simply has to be maintained, indefinitely, until the universe itself decides otherwise. The Infinity Gems, called the Infinity Stones in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, are not beings in the sense that any of the entities we have discussed are beings. They do not think. They do not have motivations. They were not created as a civilization's experiment or as the residue of a dying universe. They simply are. 6 stones, each representing a different fundamental aspect of existence. The Soul Gem, green in the comics, which contains within itself an inner dimension and which is the most genuinely alien of the 6. The stone with the most personality, the most seeming autonomy, the most capacity for something that looks uncomfortably like desire. The Time Gem, which gives its wielder mastery over every moment that has ever passed or will ever pass. The Space Gem, which removes all limitation of location. Any being holding it can exist anywhere in the universe simultaneously. The Mind Gem, which amplifies cognitive capacity to a level that makes the distinction between thought and reality meaningless. The Reality Gem, which allows its holder to override the laws of physics, to make the factually impossible simply happen. And the Power Gem, which amplifies everything else, every physical capability, every energy output, every force the holder can bring to bear, increased without limit. Together, in the gauntlet that Thanos assembled, they render their wearer omnipotent. Separately, each one is already powerful enough to reshape the fate of civilizations. The deeper question about the Infinity Gems, the one the comics have returned to across the decades, is where they came from. The earliest explanation was simply that they had always existed, predating the current universe, artifacts of the preceding cosmos that carried their function into the new reality. A later, more elaborated origin suggested they might be the remnants of a being who existed before the current universe, a singularity whose dissolution seeded the new reality with these concentrated nodes of the principles that had constituted it. What this means, if it is true, is that the Infinity Gems are not separate objects at all. They are pieces. 6 aspects of something that was once unified, something that had consciousness and power, and then, in the transition between universes, fragmented into 6 distinct elements that the new universe carries forward, unaware of what it is carrying. The soul was once a single soul. The time was once a single continuous awareness of time. The space, the mind, the reality, the power, each a fragment of a wholeness that existed before this universe did. Adam Warlock carried one of those fragments for most of his existence. He carried the soul of whatever came before. And the gem's hunger, its constant appetite for more souls, its pull toward consumption, might be the most literal expression in the mythology of what it means to be a piece of something that is trying to become whole again. The Gauntlet, when Thanos wore it, was a momentary reassembly. 6 pieces of a lost unity, worn on a hand that was not built to hold them. The power worked. The omnipotence was real. And then the living tribunal said no, and the pieces were distributed again, and the drive toward reassembly was suppressed. Not forever, not permanently, but for as long as the cosmic structure could maintain the division. This is, in the end, what the Infinity Gem story is about, the tension between wholeness and division, between a unity that was and a plurality that is. The Marvel Universe is full of beings defined by this kind of tension. Galactus was one being from a previous universe, carrying the sentience of that entire cosmos inside him. Eternity is the unity of all time and all space, made conscious. The one above all is the source from which everything else came. And somewhere in between them, 6 fragments of something that no longer exists continue to carry the memory of what they were, in the form of an irresistible power that every being with sufficient ambition eventually tries to reclaim. The gems are not the top of the hierarchy, but they are among the most honest symbols in the mythology. Honest about the fact that the universe as it exists is not the original form. Something came before, something was lost, and what we have now, vast and ancient and full of beings of incomprehensible power, is assembled from pieces of whatever that was. There is another pair of abstract entities that the mythology has never fully explored, not because they are unimportant, but because they sit so close to concepts the comics have already given form that the additional treatment risks redundancy. Yet they are worth naming, because their existence completes the philosophical structure that eternity and death began. Infinity is eternity's twin in the cosmic sense. Where eternity represents time, infinity represents space. They are 2 aspects of the same underlying reality, the container and the direction, the framework inside which all events occur. Infinity has appeared in Marvel Comics separately from eternity. She was imprisoned by the Magus, the evil future self of Adam Warlock, during the Infinity War storyline in 1992, which Jonathan Thanos Copiel brought to life on the page. When the Magus imprisoned both eternity and infinity, the practical effect was that the universe began to destabilize. Time and space, made captive, stopped functioning with their usual reliability. Reality itself bent under the strain of their imprisonment. The release of eternity and infinity is not dramatized as a heroic rescue. Exactly. It is dramatized as a restoration, the universe returning to its own proper functioning once the things that constituted it were freed. Which is, in a way, the most honest depiction possible of what these entities are. You do not rescue infinity from captivity. You restore space to its function. The distinction sounds small. It is enormous. Oblivion is death's twin, or more precisely her paired opposite. Where death is the ending of what has existed, oblivion is the state of never having existed. The void. The nothing that is not even nothing, because to be nothing is still to be a kind of something, and oblivion represents the condition before that. Oblivion is rarely explored in the comics with the depth that death receives, which makes a certain narrative sense. Death interacts with individual beings, individual endings, individual moments of cessation that characters can encounter and respond to. Oblivion is harder to interact with because it is not the end of a specific thing. It is the general condition of non-existence that all specific things are balanced against. There was a limited story exploration of Oblivion through Maelstrom, a villain who served Oblivion and attempted to destroy the universe in its name. Captain America, Quasar, and other heroes confronted Maelstrom across a storyline in the early 1990s. What the story made clear is that Oblivion is not aggressive in any recognizable sense. It is not reaching out to consume. It simply is, in the way that a vacuum is, not pulling things in, but present as the baseline state that existence is constantly held away from. To serve Oblivion is to work toward the elimination of the barrier between existence and non-existence, to bring everything to the condition of never having been. Death and Oblivion together complete something that eternity and infinity began. Four abstract entities, four corners of the same room. Eternity is time, infinity is space. Death is the ending of what time and space contain. Oblivion is what exists in the absence of everything that time and space could ever hold. The room these four entities define is not a room you can stand in and look around. It is the room that everything else is inside of. Every being we have discussed in this video, Galactus and the Silver Surfer, and the Celestials, and Thanos, and the Living Tribunal, and the One Above All, exists inside that room, exists inside the boundaries defined by time and space and death and the void. The One Above All exists outside it. Or is it more accurate to say, the One Above All is the reason the room exists at all? The question is one the comics have the wisdom to leave open. There is a figure in cosmic Marvel who does not fit the standard categories we have been working through. Not a predator, not an abstract entity, not a judge or a creator or a destroyer, a patron. A being whose specific function is to select, from among the living, the one who will carry the universe's defense forward. His name is Eon. Eon first appeared in Marvel 2-in-1 Annual Number 2 in 1977, the same issue that introduced Lord Chaos and Master Order, and that marked the death of Adam Warlock. Eon is, in appearance, something between a planet and a living organism, a vast, aged, tentacled creature of cosmic proportions who exists at the edge of the known universe. He has been alive since near the beginning of the current cosmos. His function, which he has fulfilled continuously since early in the universe's history, is the selection of the universe's protector. The protector of the universe. That title deserves to be stated plainly for a moment, because it describes a role that is both more and less than it sounds. It is more than it sounds because the universe is, as we have established, essentially infinite. To be its protector is to take on a responsibility that no finite being can fully discharge. And it is less than it sounds because Eon does not grant his protector omnipotence. He grants them the quantum bands, artifacts of immense power, and something called cosmic awareness, the ability to perceive events at the cosmic scale, to feel disturbances in the universal order, the way a spider feels vibrations in a web. Captain Marvel, the Kree warrior who became one of Marvel's most significant cosmic heroes, was selected by Eon during Jim Starlin's run on his story in the mid-1970s. Marvel received the negabands from Eon and the cosmic awareness that came with the appointment. What Starlin built with that character across Captain Marvel issues 25 through 34 in 1972 and then in the later Starlin issues is a portrait of what it actually feels like to be aware at a cosmic scale while still living in a human proportioned body. To know, at every moment, the state of the universe. To feel the balance of forces the way you feel the temperature of a room. To understand, with a certainty that has no gaps in it, exactly how small you are, and exactly how much is riding on what you do. Marvel died, cancer, the specific, medical, uncosmic kind. In The Death of Captain Marvel, a graphic novel published by Marvel in 1982 and written and drawn by Jim Starlin, the protector of the universe dies not in battle, but in a hospital bed. Death herself comes for him at the end, not as a punishment, not as a consequence of any cosmic transgression, but as the thing that comes for everyone. The protector of the universe is not protected from the universe's most basic operating principle. That story, its quiet, its specificity, its refusal to make the death dramatic in a superhero way, is one of the most honest things Marvel's cosmic mythology has ever produced. The being chosen to protect all of existence is not immune to the ending that awaits all existing things. Eon chooses the next protector. The function continues, Marvel's specific presence in it is gone. Quasar, whose real name is Wendell Vaughn, was Eon's next primary selection. He received the quantum bands, artifacts of cosmic power that focus the energies of the quantum field, and the cosmic awareness and the title. His run in his own ongoing series, which began in 1989 and ran for 60 issues, is the most sustained exploration of what it means to be the appointed guardian of a universe that is too large to guard. Quasar is a gentle, uncertain, persistently human character operating in a role that seems to require something beyond human. The quantum bands give him capabilities. They do not give him certainty. He has to figure out the protector of the universe role as he goes, without a manual, without guidance, with only the cosmic awareness that tells him where the fires are, not how to put them out. Eon was eventually killed, murdered, by Maelstrom, the same villain who served Oblivion. His successor, a being called Epoch, continued the function. The specific Eon died. The function of selecting and supporting the universe's protector continued, because the function is more durable than any single being who fulfills it. This is the pattern that keeps appearing in the cosmic mythology. The role outlasts the entity. The living tribunal can be killed. The function of cosmic judgment continues. Eon can be killed. The function of selecting cosmic champions continues. Even Galactus in some future universe stories eventually ends, and the next Galactus is selected from among the beings who survive. The specific entities are vast and powerful and ancient, but they are also, ultimately, filling positions, serving functions. The universe requires certain things of them, and it will find other ways to fulfill those requirements if the current vessel is lost. There is something almost humble about that. At this scale, every cosmic being, no matter how powerful, is answerable to a function that exists independently of them. Even the one above all, if you follow the logic of what the comic mythology says, is itself the fulfillment of a function, the function of existence having a source, the function of creation requiring a creator. None of them are the system, they are all inside it. 11 years after Galactus arrived at that rooftop in New York, another cosmic threat came from a different direction. Not from outside the universe, not from an abstract entity, but from within the darkness of the negative zone. His name is Annihilation, and what he started in 2006 is the closest the modern Marvel cosmic mythology came to establishing an apocalypse. The Annihilation storyline, written primarily by Keith Giffen and published across 2006 and 2007, begins with a premise that is almost too large to take seriously until the comics earn it. The negative zone, a parallel dimension of antimatter and decay that has appeared in Marvel Comics since Fantastic Four number 51 in 1966, has a ruler. Annihilus has always been that ruler, insectoid, armored, driven by an almost pathological terror of death and a corresponding obsession with preserving his own existence through destruction. He carries the cosmic control rod, an artifact of immense power, and he has spent his existence building the Annihilation Wave, a fleet so vast it contains more ships than some galaxies contain stars. He opens a portal from the negative zone into the positive matter universe. The Annihilation Wave begins consuming everything in its path. What Annihilation does, narratively, is take the cosmic side of the Marvel Universe, Nova, the Silver Surfer, Ronan the Accuser, Super-Skrull, Drax the Destroyer, figures who had operated in the margins of the larger stories for decades, and give them an event that is genuinely theirs, not a crossover where the Avengers show up to save everything. A cosmic war with cosmic casualties, fought by cosmic beings against a threat that the street-level heroes cannot meaningfully address. The Nova Corps, the intergalactic police force created in Richard Rider's stories beginning with The Man Called Nova in 1976, is effectively destroyed in the opening movements of Annihilation. Thousands of officers killed, dozens of planets consumed. The Annihilation Wave is not surgical. It does not distinguish between inhabited worlds and uninhabited ones. It consumes. Annihilus's motivation is, in its own way, a dark mirror of every motivation we have explored in this video. Thanos kills because he loves death. Annihilus kills because he fears death, fears it with such consuming terror that the only logical response, in his psychology, is to eliminate everything that might ever pose a threat to his continued existence. The universe is dangerous. Other beings are dangerous. The solution is to be the most dangerous thing in the universe, to consume before being consumed, to expand and expand until there is nothing left that could possibly threaten the last survivor. This is, stated plainly, a being whose relationship to mortality is the exact inverse of Thanos's, arriving at almost the exact same behavior. Thanos kills to honor death. Annihilus kills to avoid it. The bodies pile up identically. What stops the Annihilation wave is not a single dramatic hero moment. It is Drax the Destroyer killing Thanos, because Thanos has been captured and is being used by Annihilus to harness the power cosmic of the Silver Surfer through technology Annihilus does not understand. Without Thanos as a resource, the wave loses a key strategic advantage. Richard Rider, the last surviving Nova Centurion, merges with the World Mind, the artificial intelligence that houses the entire history and knowledge of the Nova Corps, and becomes a being of amplified power sufficient to confront Annihilus directly. He tears Annihilus apart. The wave collapses. The victory is not clean, and it is not cheap. The Nova Corps is gone. Dozens of species have been destroyed. The structure of the cosmic side of the Marvel Universe has been disrupted in ways that will take years of stories to work through. Annihilation established something that the cosmic Marvel mythology had not previously stated this directly. The cosmic hierarchy is not impenetrable. It can be overwhelmed. There are threats that emerge, not from outside the structure or above it, but from within its own dark corners, from the negative zone that Reed Richards discovered, and that no one thought to defend adequately until the moment it was too late. Annihilus, for all the devastation he caused, is not a cosmic entity in the sense that death or eternity are cosmic entities. He is a mortal being with a very powerful artifact and a very large fleet, and a psychology that has been warped by eons of living in the darkness of the negative zone. He is dangerous not because he is transcendent, but because he is not. Because he wants things, fears things, acts from a place of raw existential terror that no amount of power has managed to address. He is the reminder that the cosmic hierarchy, with all its abstract entities and omnipotent judges and creative sources, is surrounded by the ordinary darkness of creatures who are simply afraid. Before we reach the synthesis, there is one more concept that belongs in this accounting. Not a being, exactly, but a category of object that the cosmic mythology returns to again and again, that sits at the intersection of the hierarchy's highest tiers and the beings who desperately want to climb them. The cosmic cube, and with it, the broader question of what consciousness does when it is given the tools of creation without the wisdom that creation requires. The cosmic cube first appeared in Tales of Suspense number 79 in 1966, where it was introduced as a weapon the Red Skull had acquired from a Hydra research project. The object itself, a cube of crystal lattice, glowing with energy, small enough to hold in one hand, grants its holder the ability to reshape reality according to their will. Whatever the holder imagines, the cube makes real. The wish fulfillment implications are obvious. The cosmic implications take years to unpack. What the comics eventually revealed is that the cosmic cube is not simply a tool. It is a being in embryonic form, a matrix of energy that is slowly developing consciousness as it absorbs the intentions and desires of everyone who uses it. Every wish the Red Skull made with the cube, every goal the cube was directed toward, left an impression. The cube was learning what it was for by learning what beings wanted it to do for them. And the beings who most often possessed the cosmic cube, supervillains, primarily, with ambitions toward world conquest or universal domination, were teaching it a very specific curriculum. Kubik is the name the adult cosmic cube adopted when it reached full sentience, in stories from the late 1980s. A benign, curious entity, genuinely interested in the universe and in understanding its own nature. The Shaper of Worlds is another adult cube, older than Kubik, shaped by the wishes of the Skrulls who originally created it, and bearing the imprint of their empire's values and aesthetics. These fully realized cubes sit somewhere in the cosmic hierarchy between the abstract entities and the celestials, not as powerful as eternity but not far below, and possessed of a kind of consciousness that is specific in a way that eternity's is not. They were made by someone. They remember who made them. That memory shapes who they are. Thanos, at various points in his history, has pursued the cosmic cube as a step toward greater power. The Infinity Gauntlet story was not his first attempt at omnipotence. In earlier Starland stories, the Captain Marvel run and the storyline in Avengers Annual No. 7 and Marvel 2-in-1 Annual No. 2 in 1977, Thanos used a different approach. He used the cosmic cube, which he had obtained by force, to begin restructuring reality toward the configuration he needed. He was stopped. The cube was taken from him. He began planning the next approach. This is the pattern that Thanos' entire cosmic career describes. He finds a source of power sufficient to reach the level he is trying to reach, uses it until he is stopped, and begins planning the next attempt. The cosmic cube leads to the Infinity Gauntlet. The Infinity Gauntlet leads to the events of Infinity War and Infinity Crusade in 1992 and 1993. Each failure is an education. Each time he is stopped, he has learned something about what more powerful sources of power require. What the cosmic cube represents in the hierarchy, ultimately, is the seductive availability of reality-warping power to beings who are not ready for it. It is small enough to be stolen. It is simple enough to be operated by anyone who holds it. It has none of the cosmic gatekeeping that surrounds the Infinity Gems, no living tribunal ruling you unworthy, no abstract entities trying to reclaim what you hold. It simply works. Your will is the cube's operating system. And most of the beings who have held it, the Red Skull, various Hydra scientists, Thanos before he set his sights on the Infinity Gems, are exactly the wrong beings to have it, because they have specific and narrow desires that the cube will fulfill without judgment or context. The cube does not know that the Red Skull's idea of a better world is a catastrophe. It does not know that Thanos' pursuit of Death's approval will end in half the universe being destroyed. It knows what its holder wants, and it makes that thing happen. The wisdom to want the right things is not included. Kubik, the adult cube, represents what reality-warping power looks like when it has developed the wisdom to know what it should want. Kubik is curious. Kubik is gentle. Kubik has conversations with beings far less powerful than itself and seems genuinely interested in what they have to say. The difference between Kubik and the cube in the Red Skull's fist is not a difference of power level. It is a difference of accumulated understanding, of time spent learning rather than being used. That distinction between raw capability and the wisdom that should precede its use is the thread that runs through every level of the cosmic hierarchy, from the newest hero encountering cosmic scale for the first time, to the one above all, who represents the creative force underlying existence. Power and the wisdom to use it are not the same thing, and the hierarchy of power that the cosmic mythology describes is also, always, a hierarchy of understanding. Galactus is so ancient that his use of his power has become something close to automatic. He does not need to think about whether to consume a world, because the question of whether has become irrelevant to a being who has been consuming worlds since before this universe had stars. The abstract entities do not think about using their power because they are their power, because there is no gap between what they are and what they do. The living tribunal does not deliberate over judgments in the way a mortal judge deliberates, because its understanding of the structure it serves is complete. And the one above all does not wield its creative power with effort or intention, in the way a human artist wields a brush, because the creation is simply what it does, continuously, as the fundamental expression of its nature. The cosmic cube is the child's version of that continuum. Power before understanding, capability before wisdom. The universe, watching, waiting to see what the child does with it next. Before we move on, if you are enjoying this analysis, please consider subscribing. It helps the channel tremendously. The concept of cosmic awareness deserves its own moment, because it represents something that the hierarchy of power has consistently understated: the difference between being powerful and being awake. Most beings in the Marvel Universe, however powerful, are not cosmically aware. They experience their power from the inside of it. Galactus does not perceive the universe the way eternity perceives it, as a totality, as a sum. He perceives it the way any being perceives it, from a location, through a sensory apparatus, from the perspective of a specific place in space and time. His perspective is ancient and his sensory apparatus is beyond any ordinary being's comprehension. But he is still located. He still has a perspective. Cosmic awareness, the gift that Eon grants to the universe's protector, is something different. It is not simply enhanced senses. It is the capacity to perceive the universe not as a collection of locations and objects and events viewed from a specific point, but as a system, to feel its structure the way a musician feels the structure of a piece of music, not note by note, but as a whole, with all the relationships between parts present simultaneously. When Marvel held cosmic awareness, he could feel the universe's health the way you feel the health of your own body. A disturbance in the cosmic order registered the way pain registers, not as information received from outside, but as a change in a state that is partly yours. That is, in its own way, one of the most alien experiences the cosmic mythology describes. Not the alienness of Galactus's scale, which is simply hugeness. Not the alienness of death's patience, which is simply duration. The alienness of cosmic awareness is the alienness of a different relationship to space, of being a finite being who can nevertheless perceive the universe as a whole, whose consciousness has been stretched to encompass what it was not built to encompass. Marvel's descriptions of cosmic awareness, across Starlin's writing, are among the most specifically realized attempts in superhero comics to render what it would actually feel like to know that much. The closest analogy the comics find is music, the sense of all parts being present simultaneously, each one meaningful in itself but most meaningful in its relationship to the others. The universe as a composition, the protector as a being sensitive enough to hear when the composition is going wrong. Quasar experienced it differently. Where Marvel describes cosmic awareness as overwhelming, as a constant input he had to learn to manage, Quasar describes it as something more like peripheral vision, always present, usually in the background, coming to the foreground only when something requires it. The same gift, the same capacity, shaped differently by the personality of the being who carries it. This matters because it points to something the cosmic mythology has consistently implied without quite stating. The universe is not neutral toward the beings who inhabit it. It is not indifferent in the way that a truly empty cosmos would be indifferent. It has a protector. It has a structure. It has beings whose specific function is to maintain its health. It selected those beings not at random, but through eons' long process of evaluation and choice. Something in the universe knows what it needs and works, through the mechanisms of the cosmic hierarchy, to get it. Whether that something is the one above all expressing itself through the lower levels of the hierarchy, or whether it is simply the structure that the one above all created operating autonomously as it was designed to, that question also stays open. The comics have the wisdom to leave it open. The universe's intelligence, if it has one, expresses itself through the behavior of the system, rather than through direct statements of intent. You can feel that something is watching. You can feel that something cares about the continuation of what is. What exactly that something is, and whether it has a name beyond the name we have already given it, remains, as it always has, a matter of interpretation. The picture that emerges from all of this, from Galactus arriving at a rooftop in 1966, to the one above all appearing as a figure resembling Jack Kirby in 2004, is not a list of power rankings. It is not a tournament bracket. It is a cosmology, a complete system of thought about what existence is, who maintains it, what threatens it, and where it comes from. Every being in this hierarchy asks a different version of the same question. Galactus asks what it means to be necessary but destructive. The Silver Surfer asks what it means to have a conscience inside a system that does not require one. The Celestials ask what it means to create without explanation, to build life and walk away and return only to judge. Uatu asks what it means to see everything and to have a rule against intervening, and then to keep breaking that rule anyway because the alternative is watching something terrible happen and recording it. Eternity asks what it means to be the universe, not to be in it, not to move through it, but to be it. To have consciousness distributed across every star and every empty pocket of space simultaneously. Death asks what it means to wait, with perfect patience, for everything. Lord Chaos and Master Order ask what it means to be a force that can never be resolved, only balanced. The in-betweener asks what it means to live inside that balance permanently. The Infinity Gems ask what it means to have been whole and to exist now as fragments. Thanos asks what it means to love something that cannot love you back, and to spend your entire existence reaching for it anyway. The Beyonder asks what it means to want, when wanting is something you have never experienced before and do not have the context to understand. The Beyonders ask what it means to be so powerful that destruction has no emotional weight. The Living Tribunal asks what it means to be judgment itself, to exist without preference or mercy, to rule and have the ruling be final. Adam Warlock asks what it means to be chosen for a purpose you did not select, and to keep fulfilling it anyway because the purpose matters more than the choosing. The Phoenix Force asks what it means to be the fire that clears the ground for what comes next, indifferent to everything that was growing there before. And the One Above All answers none of these questions directly. It created the conditions under which every one of them could be asked. That is all it has ever done. That is all it needs to do. There is a specific kind of comfort in that, though it is not a simple comfort, and it does not come cheap. The comfort is this. The universe was made by something that cared enough about existence to make it. That whatever process produced Galactus and Death and the Beyonders and the Living Tribunal and every story of struggle and power and consequence we have explored tonight, that process was not random. Something that could have made nothing instead made everything and chose to keep making it and is still making it. Every being on this hierarchy is a different way of existing inside the fact of existence. Some of them consume it, some of them contain it, some of them judge it, some of them destroy it, some of them keep reaching for something it cannot give, and all of them, from the smallest silver surfer riding the cosmic winds to the vast silence of the One Above All, are doing what conscious beings do in a universe that continues past any individual comprehension of it. They are trying to understand what they are and what they are for and whether those two things will ever match. This is the specific achievement of Marvel's cosmic mythology at its best. It creates beings of incomprehensible power and uses them to ask questions about experience that every conscious being, at every scale, is navigating. You do not need to be Galactus to know what it feels like to be something that other beings cannot safely approach. You do not need to be the Silver Surfer to know what it is to have sacrificed something fundamental for someone you loved and to be still paying that price. You do not need to be Thanos to know what it is to pursue something that cannot give you what you actually want, and to keep pursuing it because stopping would mean acknowledging that the pursuit was the mistake. The cosmic scale amplifies these things. It renders them in light years and millennia instead of rooms and decades. But the shape of the experience is the same. The Silver Surfer trapped on Earth is a prisoner of his own generosity. The in-betweener trapped between chaos and order is a prisoner of his own nature. Adam Warlock, coming back from Soul World again and again because the cosmos requires it, is a prisoner of his own usefulness. Uatu, watching from the moon and unable to stay silent when it matters, is a prisoner of his own care. These are not alien problems.